Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Block 020. This is brought to you by Nexchange, where I work. My name is Andrew Work. For those of you that haven't met me, I'm the, I got a new title, Managing Director of the Media Division, Asia and Europe. So I'm going to be your MC tonight. Very exciting stuff. And we're going to get going. We're talking about the birth of security tokens. To my way of thinking, maybe this is something that should have happened a long time ago. And the why of why it did or didn't, we're going to get into, because we got two absolutely fabulous speakers tonight who know a lot more about this topic than I do. I'm going to take care of a little housekeeping before we go. First thing up, a lot of you are regulars to Nexchange's events, whether it's FinTech 020, HealthTech 020, or Block 020, and you know that we have the app. You can go to, if you haven't got the app yet, we've got Wi-Fi, but you don't really need, you can just get on there, go to the Google Play Store, go to the Apple Store. Here, I'm going to turn that around for you. Wi-Fi enabled. And download the app. Just search for Nexchange, and you're going to use the app tonight. All right? So the app is going to be brought into play. We use it at all our events. Anybody that's ever been to one of our events is in it. They're logged in. They got a profile. You can connect with those people that have been to our events. You can also use the event to ask questions of our panelists tonight. And the first priority is going to be for people that have the app. So they can ask questions through the app. I'll be holding the device that, the questions will come from your phone to the app, and then I will ask them on your behalf. The way it works is once you have downloaded the app, you create, do a quick profile. You go to the live events section. So once you're in the live events section, put in the code 9123. It'll be the only live event, and you are here live watching it happen. So make sure you get into the app. For those of you that are regulars, you know the drill. Get in, put in the code, boom, you're ready for action. Okay, very good. So that's the app. Who have I got pressing the button on the computer? Where's that? In the back. Okay, Jeff, let's get the next slide up. Very good. That's me. Already said that. Moving on. Okay, here we go. We want to let you guys know about Hong Kong Blockchain Week. It's been up here. I think everybody in this room has heard about Hong Kong Blockchain Week that is going to be happening in March. It's going to be absolutely spectacular. It's kind of hard to believe that Hong Kong has maybe the only major financial center on the planet that has not had a blockchain week. I mean, I think Moose Jaw has had a blockchain week in northern Manitoba. I mean, they have a blockchain week, but it's Hong Kong's time. The time is now. It's going to kick off March 4th with a sunset party at the brand new University of Chicago Booth School of Business standalone campus, overlooking the beautiful South China Sea with a perfect view of the sunset. It's on Parkville Ave. And you're all like, what? University of Chicago? Yeah, they just opened it last week. Nobody's ever been there from here. So we're going to kick off with that. Then the Block 020 Global Summit, March 5th and 6th. It's going to be big on an Asia World Expo. It's a massive exhibition, a huge conference. And then we've got the Hybrid Summit from our friends at Hybrid Block. The strategic partner is going to be March 7th and 8th. And we're going to have it all week. There's going to be a big focus on enterprise and how they're using blockchain, whether it's financial services, the exchanges, central banks, the health tech, environment, everybody. We've got all the enterprise, but then also, of course, the crypto. And so all that's going to be going on during the course of the week. We expect up to 20 accredited events. You guys know what it's like when there's a big anchor event. All kinds of other people say, we got to have our event that week. All the biggest speakers are in town. We're about to announce a major hackathon that's going to be happening. Buy me a couple of drinks. I might spill that secret before it's time, but I'm not going to tell you right now. So it's going to be big. Put it in your calendars. Don't travel. If you want to find out more about it, come and talk to Robin in the back. He's having a bit of a chat there. Or come talk to me or Jawan Lee, our CEO and founder, Blockchain Week. Don't miss it. Okay, good. Next up, Jeff. Some of you are into blockchain, crypto, you like the Telegram, so get on our super group. Now's the chance if you want to get it out, take a quick pic and you can get the QR code. I think most people here are probably already on it and get our updates and everything, but I see some of the phones coming up, so we'll get out of the way. People want to get on there. There you go. And get on the Nexchange Telegram super group. Okay, good. Everybody's clicked on that. Good. Fire away. Next up. What do we got? Oh, we got the speaker. First speaker of the day, people. Imagine that. Really excited to have our first speaker. Coming to us from Kingwood, Mallesons. This partner at that law firm has quickly become the leading legal light in all of Asia in this sector. She has a tremendous background, like long before this all kicked off, tremendous background in the intersection of technology, finance, and regulation. So once fintech and then blockchain took off and exploded, she was the right woman in the right time, in the right place, and all of her expertise came to bear. And now she has helped her firm to become the leading light, the go-to, whether you're a startup, that just got their first bit of funding, or whether you are a major global financial institution, everything in between, they handle it, doing a great job, and I've seen you speak before, so I'm so excited to see you again. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a big welcome from Urszula McCormack, partner at KWN. Please.
Thanks a lot. What an introduction. No expectations there. So I think that my slides should be up there. Okay, all right. So when I was invited to come here to speak about security tokens, what I really wanted to avoid was another talk fest and just chatting in very general terms about the space. I really wanted to convey to you some of the 101 about what security tokens are, what they are not, why we're even looking at this space, given that we're in another hype cycle. And I think, you know, we can all agree we're in another hype cycle. ICOs, a lot of trouble around ICOs, and now we're looking for something new. And having said that, my team has advised on 40-odd token sales. We're passionate about the blockchain space, and we have a very long-term view about it. So as much as I think that the ICO hype cycle is down, I'm certainly not here to say that ICOs are, you know, are horrible things. I think that they've gone through a terrible time, and I also think that the technology is here to stay. What is interesting about the security token space is that we're starting to come full circle back into traditional financial services, infrastructure, regulation, and that whole piece. You know, as much as this is about leveraging new technology, we're also starting to look at some of the classic ways in which we interact. We issue equity, we issue debt, to see if we can make it better. So one of the things that I'll be talking about today are, first of all, busting some myths around security tokens, talking through some fundamentals about security tokens and some of the practical implementation considerations, having a chat about how primary issuance of a security token works, and then secondary markets as well as leaving some time for questions. Now, the point around this whole space is that it is heavily regulated, no doubt about it. And in fact, the secondary market is one of the key issues for security tokens and their ability to be successful long term. So here are some common myths. So the first one is forget about utility tokens. Forget about them. It's all about security tokens. And I think to some degree that is correct as the current market. You'll see, you know, that they're down about 90% on what it was around the start of the year. However, there's a lot of, you know, ongoing and enduring technology and use cases around utility tokens, payment tokens, and so forth that will remain. So let's bust that. Second one, you can sell anything to accredited investors, and we'll start to see why that is not correct. Now, one of the reasons that we've seen this sort of boom cycle is the United States. And accredited investors is a US concept. There is a similar concept in Hong Kong, it's called professional investor, but it is not a cure-all for all your regulatory woes. It is a channel for issuance, but it does not necessarily solve everything. The next one, any security token will sell. Let's hope this is a myth that we will bust, because it was certainly a problem with the ICO hype cycle. But when I was looking at when we were advising late last year, earlier this year, anything that went to market was guaranteed at least something like a $15 million US raise. That is not a good market. Another myth, a security token is a share in a blockchain company. Incorrect. So what we are actually talking about is that the asset itself is it uses blockchain technology. It's nothing to do with it just being plain old equity issuance in a company that happens to be involved in blockchain. It is also not a crypto fund, even though I might be able to issue the interests or create those interests using blockchain. Another myth, you still only need a white paper and some code. Now, this is a myth that's actually kind of true. So you can still create a security token using a white paper and some code. There have been plenty of security tokens that have been issued unlawfully. But frankly, you know, when we talk about what documentation looks like, you still could do this with white paper and some code. And then finally, security tokens are the antithesis of blockchain, and we hear this a lot, you know, the sort of initial founding ideals around blockchain, distributed ledger technology. Let's get rid of the lawyers, get rid of the infrastructure, get rid of everything but the pure technology to enable people to interact in a decentralized peer-to-peer way. And so, to some degree, is that the antithesis of blockchain? Maybe, and we can debate that philosophically at another time. So here are the fundamentals. So I use this slide a lot. I use it with regulators, I use it with banks, I use it with some of our startup companies, and it really is just to set the scene about what it is that we're talking about. And there's a lot of ways to describe this top section in a number of these, and the terminology, it doesn't matter so much. But let's talk about digital assets as the general pool of assets that are in digital form. It could be dematerialized securities, it could be any number of digital assets. Sometimes they're called virtual commodities. Virtual assets is gaining ground in Hong Kong. But it's this whole group of assets that are in digital format. And a subset of those are coins and tokens. And basically what we're talking about is assets that utilize distributed ledger technology and smart contracts. We also have then a whole subset of coins and tokens. Again, these are not hard and fast categories, but we talk about medium of exchange coins. So things like Bitcoin that don't inherently have any sort of rights embedded in them other than recognition on the blockchain, and they're really only used as a form of payment. Utility, you know that, long well known, you know, F is a utility token, and a number of utility tokens. They do something, they have some sort of access right, they perform some kind of function, they might operate as a voucher. Tokenized securities is what we're talking about today, that's in the pink box. And so what we're talking about is a security that happens to use distributed ledger technology. And then you have a whole number of other ones. So asset-backed stable coins, digital fiat itself, and lots of others. Now, tokenized securities might well be asset-backed tokens as well as stable coins. And I think that's one of the misconceptions around stable coins in particular, is that they're actually quite highly regulated products. So tread with caution. What is a security token? Well, when we look at tokens, what are they in a sense? They're a shell, they're a record on a ledger. So I can create a token that embeds any kinds of rights I want. And utility token happens to generally embed a right to access software or something else. A security token might give me a share. It might record a debt. It could give you various types of other options or reflect another interest, like in relation to securities, or it could serve as a form of certificate. Now, the big one is a collective investment scheme. And these are things like the DAO and other types of often utility tokens that intend to take money in or crypto in, develop something, develop value, and then redistribute the merit of that. So a classic fund is a collective investment scheme, and any number of utility tokens that are out there that are infringing are often in this bucket. They're collective investment schemes or investment contracts, depending on the jurisdiction. And then you've got various types of structured products and derivatives, so basically something that tracks the value of something else, and that's often where stable coins fit in. So if you've got something that's pegged to something else, it is most likely a structured product, and therefore it's technically a security token. So if we look at something that's very basic, and often we talk about the sort of why of security tokens. So let's take a look. This is just a really basic diagram of what a share looks like. So you've got shareholders at the top, you've got the company down the bottom. The company will issue dividends and other distributions, the shareholders contribute capital, and they might vote on certain things. You might have various types of corporate actions and so forth. You could also have different classes of shareholders as well. Now, all of these things require documentation, they require records, they require reconciliation, there are restrictions on who can become a shareholder. So some of the benefit of having distributed ledger technology in this is that it enables, for example, you to record things quite nicely. It enables you to have voting mechanisms that happen quite nicely. It also allows you to have a degree of certainty and security around the actions, as well as transparency and control. So a lot of times people will talk about securities as, in fact, programmable securities, because I can embed in the technology a restriction to say that my company's shares will only be issued to people who are pre-KYC'd and meet certain controls. And that's really important when we talk about the regulatory side of things. And really also helpful for a company to know who its shareholders are at any given time. So in a fund scenario, and this is really simplified, the funds take all sorts of different different structures. So if we talk about the fund vehicle down the bottom, it could be a trust, it could be a corporation, it could be a partnership. It tends to have investors at the top who make contributions, who vote, there are returns that flow up, you've got underlying assets, and again, you've got lots of things that you are recording. So you could use all sorts of unified blockchain in lots of different ways. You could also have not necessarily a classic fund, but you could have a classic utility token. So say, for example, I'm building an exchange, and my token allows you to have certain preferential rights or allows you to pay on my platform, and it operates in an unregulated way. So my token is not a regulated security. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to incentivize you to buy that token. And what I'd like to say to you is that, well, look, in return for being an active member of my community, I'm going to give you back some of the profit from my platform. And it's going to be in proportion to your own ownership of that of tokens. So I've actually created a fund. I've created a collective investment scheme. So that can be a good thing. But then we rapidly move into the regulatory side. One of the other kind of key benefits, I suppose, so we've talked about transparency, we've talked about controls that are implicit, but the other one, of course, is liquidity. So the aim around this is not necessarily just to create a perfect type of ledger system for this particular asset, but we're also talking about giving it liquidity, allowing it to be transferred very easily amongst people as well. What else could I tokenize? Well, I can tokenize anything. I can tokenize the Mona Lisa, I can tokenize the diamonds, so you would have seen the Chow Tai Fook announcement. So tokenizing or creating diamonds on blockchain, you can tokenize everything as we know. So the question is, am I creating something that is a security token? So when I talk about the Mona Lisa, for example, if I'm simply creating a record of ownership of the Mona Lisa, I'm not creating a collective investment scheme. But as soon as I divide up that Mona Lisa into multiple fractions, and what I'm doing is allowing people to participate in the value of that Mona Lisa when it is sold, if it's ever sold, then again I'm creating a collective investment scheme, so I've created a security token. So this, you hear about these sort of asset-backed tokens, you hear about sort of fractionalized ownership. Just remember that we're back into the security token space. So the key implementation points, what am I trying to achieve, and does it require blockchain? So there are lots of different benefits around blockchain, but can I just achieve that through a private system that enables that? Do I really need distributed ledger technology? What is the domicile of the issuer vehicle? That informs the legal analysis. What other jurisdictions, where am I marketing, where are my people? And what are the formalities and restrictions that I need to work with? So if I'm creating a fund that's based in Cayman, for example, what are the specific registry requirements? Am I allowed to keep that record in a digital format? So a few considerations there. And they're often really boring legal issues that people like me like to pore over. Is there any reg tech that help? And that's I think for me one of the most exciting pieces of this puzzle is the programmability of securities. The fact that I can say that my securities will only ever go to professional investors because that is programmed in. It's not a freely transferable asset. How do assignments happen at law? That's for me to worry about and document. Are electronic transactions actually recognised at law? So if I'm incorporating something in far-flung jurisdiction, do I have the recognition I need? And again, how do I document it? So when we talk about primary issuance and secondary markets, there's a few key things to bear in mind. There are two key regulatory triggers, and this applies to most markets. You tend to have entity-level regulation, so me as a participant in the system, and you also have product-level regulation of the actual transaction of the asset itself. In Hong Kong, you'll see some of the triggers down there. So if I am dealing in securities, security tokens, well, I'm dealing in securities. I need a Type 1 license. If I'm advising on whether it's a good time to buy a particular security token, I need a Type 4 license. If I'm trading security tokens, creating a market, I need a Type 7 license. If I'm managing a pool of assets, I need a Type 9. There's lots of other types of licenses, so for custody, for deposit taking, depending on what you're doing. But one of the key things, and you'll see there on the left-hand side, is that I still need a trigger. So I need to actually be carrying on business. In Hong Kong, I might need to be holding out, or I need to be actively marketing from offshore that I'm carrying on a business. So, and there might well be some exemptions that apply. So if I, as a primary issuer, so I'm a company that wants to issue a bond or a security or share, I tend not to be carrying on business. But the person who is helping me sell them to the market, who is doing the road shows, who is meeting with investors, they're the ones who need the license. At the product level, this is also where you want to be, tend to want to stay out of if you're creating anything that's rather bespoke. So it tends to be that a lot of these products stay in an unregulated zone or in a more tightly regulated zone because it's just not feasible to get regulatory approval, and the regulators here tend to want some of these products to be limited to a professionals market. So the Securities and Futures Ordinance governs securities, futures, derivatives. Companies winding up with the Insulated Provisions Ordinance governs shares and debentures. All stuff, just the key thing to know is that you tend to need to restrict these to professional investors. So to recap, you need a licensed person to help you sell these things, and you need to be limiting the offer to professional investors only, or in a way that's not open to the public. So there's a few things to remember. Now, this sort of regime, again, applies in almost every jurisdiction. So when we talk about the regulatory regime for utility tokens, there is a degree of regulatory arbitrage that still occurs. In securities, we tend to have, do just need to be working within the regime for each jurisdiction. So the key points, just to wrap up, lots of great opportunities, undeniably, lots of really interesting ways in which we can deploy DLT for securities, but just remembering, blockchain doesn't change what the asset is. You cannot generally sell to the public, and I think that's one of the key messages that we need to make, is that you cannot sell security tokens to the average person on the street. This is not like your typical sort of basic crypto assets. The issuance must of course be legal, and anyone who's an intermediary, so between, needs to be thinking about their own legal position. And the crux of it in designing this is there a trading venue? Because this point around liquidity drives a lot of this. And so, even a couple of months ago, many people were saying, well, look, security tokens are interesting, but where are you going to trade them? And that was a fair point. Now, just on the 1st of November, we had the announcement of the SFC sandbox. Now, brief recap, it's an opt-in approach, an opt-in framework. It enables firms that want to create an exchange for security tokens to do so under the supervision of the SFC. I say it's opt-in because you opt in the rest of your crypto business in there. So the SFC doesn't regulate Bitcoin, it cannot regulate Bitcoin, it has no mandate to do so. However, if you opt in because you've got a security token, you are then subject to the whole regime. It's exploratory, the SFC has said it might not grant any licenses at the end of it, but the sandbox approach will be the SFC monitoring the business, looking at it, and then at the end deciding whether or not it will give you a Type 1 and a Type 7 license to be able to operate that exchange. So exploratory, really interesting for people who want to create that sort of market. Again, remembering it will be limited to professional investors. And there's also a number of other key regimes. So we're starting to see a number of US broker-dealers coming online that are able to handle crypto. One of the key things around this is that, yes, there's opportunities for exchanges, yes, there's opportunities for issuers, but also what we're seeing lacking at the moment is credible custody. It's growing, but credible custody and insurance. So for those of you who are in different areas, banks, obviously, an ongoing issue, but the need for sort of knowledge building and development around this space is key to enabling this to actually be successful. So I'll leave it there and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, we've got time for maybe one or two questions. We encourage some through the apps, and most people will go to the front of the line, but I think you guys are still getting your profiles loaded up. Does anyone want to fire a question off? Kick things off here on a security token night? Hands, small group, don't be shy.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If I don't go on the sandbox, and I just wanted to apply for 1 and a 7 myself, is there any advantage by going on the sandbox? I just don't understand why you would even need to be monitored and be alerted when you can just apply later.
Yeah, well, that's a fair point. So there's 2 points there. One is if you're already operating legally, you've got a large crypto exchange, you're offering, you've got a great retail segment, there's a big question, you know, why go through this process? You'll end up with a much more confined business model, you'll be subject to a whole world of regulation you weren't to. So for many large exchanges, this doesn't make sense. For others as well, to your point around, you know, why not just wait until the SFC has done its exploratory phase? That's also a fair point. But the advantage there is that for those who know the space, you're able to help inform the SFC's thinking. And this was one of the great success points for those involved in the creation of the stored value facilities regime. So the octopus cards and Alipays and things like that. Those who were involved early helped set the standard for everyone else. So if you've got a view on what good custody looks like, it's useful to be there with the SFC and helping to inform their own view of that.
Yeah. Right down in front.
Do you want to speak up?
Want to get a microphone, or?
Yeah, you earlier touched on insurance and the places that are growing, and you've talked a lot about SFC, and this might be out of your comfort zone, but can you briefly I don't know, touch on the stance of insurance authority against the insurance that covers, I don't know, the custodian business over digital assets or security tokens or some other stuff? Thank you.
Yeah, well, no, it's a good question, and I'll start by saying I don't know the insurance authority's current view, but where we're at with insurance regulation is relevant. So, undertaking a massive re-regulation of the insurance sector, it's going to a model that looks and feels much more like the SFC's sector. What we hear most about insurers is that they're still trying to assess the risk, and so, you know, in rolling out some of their cyber products, for example, that wave has come. We know some insurers are sort of looking, and there's some insurance that's available, but it's priced very high. So my impression is, from what we've heard from the industry, is that it isn't a closed door, but they're having to adopt the same rigor that they do to launching any new product and assess the risk. And so a lot of the insurance products that we see, so there's D&O insurance that's available, but just not necessarily on custody as much just yet.
Thanks.
But my feeling is that it's not a top-down restriction. It's much more about the insurers themselves. I don't know if anyone else in the room has a perspective on that.
Okay, yeah, one last question right up here from Charles Delsay from Invest.com.
Sorry. I understand you're not the SFC, but maybe what is your feeling? Is the SFC looking at to invite in the sandbox full solutions in terms of exchanges? Or is the SFC looking at and also welcoming people which are only having a custody solution or only having a trade monitoring solution? So should companies apply as a full operator and they have to basically pick up the technologies which are relevant to basically operate an exchange, or they can come as just a single focus operator in the crypto asset?
Yes, so it needs to be an exchange. So starting point is that it has to be the sort of full service customer facing kit, but very much open in terms of, say for example on custody, open as to whether or not you do self-custody or you adopt, you apply, you use a third-party service provider. As to the component regulation, so a custody provider tends to need to be regulated by a different entity, by the company's registry for a TCSP license. But from the SFC standpoint, it's regulating the sort of full service exchange.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to have time for more questions when we get into the, we're going to have a little panel session, and I will give you guys a chance to get some questions in, but I will be taking my first priority questions from the app, so make sure you guys get it if you want to be first in line, because they'll be the first to go. We're going to have our second speaker, and then we're going to bring Urszula back and be able to get some questions. So big round of applause. Thank you, Urszula, for kicking off the proceedings tonight. You guys can chill for a bit. First off, I'd like to recognize our venue sponsor for the evening. You know, when you guys came out of the elevator, they're very cool. They're very subtle about it, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that our venue sponsor tonight